Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Diana and the Book Hunt. Today I'm going to do a bit of a different video than I usually do. Typically I stick to like recommendation videos and wrap-ups and stuff like that, but I have been watching some of my favorite creators do some different kinds of videos where they're really chatting about their preferences and really sharing with their viewers what they would like to see more of or less of in the book community. I've seen Crystal do a couple of months ago like worst trends in the book community, where she really talks about things that are bothering her within the book community, and I really love that video. And I was commenting on that video how I love to see more of these kinds of discussion videos on the booktube, in the booktube community, because it kind of creates a very good discourse of how do we want to evolve in the romance community, what would we like to see authors do more of or less of. And if we talk about it more, it creates a space of authors recognizing what we would like to see in the future so that they can start producing it in reality. So this is what I want to kind of jump on. I think that actually, Jenn from the Book Refuge, she also did a video where she's talking about things that she loves or doesn't love. I think it was just recently that she posted it, and she made some really valid points in that video, really to her credit. She's excellent in this kind of a discourse of what is good and what isn't good in the book community, in her opinion. And here is maybe a good point, because I see that everyone does that and I want to do it too, so that we really have like a fair discussion going on here. This is a disclaimer to say that these are my opinions, and if you're by any chance offended by anything that I say, please let me know. I will apologize for it, because it's not my intention to offend anyone, but obviously I'm going to touch on some topics that may be a bit controversial or anything, so just bear in mind that we can do it respectfully, obviously, and I respect anyone's opinion, and I would love to hear your opinion. Even if you disagree with me, I would love to have a discussion on that, because you may be able to change mine, and it's just a way of expressing one's opinion where we want to open up the stage of having like a healthy discourse about what is going on in the book world. So I'm going to talk about a couple of different things on here. I was thinking about what do I love and what would I like to see more of, or what would I like to see that I haven't seen before, and how can I get that into the world so that someone does something with it. So I'm going to start off with tropes here. So one of my favorite tropes is one that I find that is very difficult to pull off, and that is the marriage in trouble trope. And the thing is that most of the books that I've read with this trope really often involve people who are struggling with fertility, people who have been together for a long time and just want to take the next step within their relationship and have kids, and it's difficult for them to have kids. They need to go through IVF, or they lose a child, and this kind of marriage in trouble situation obviously is very hard-hitting and very emotional, and I love reading about it because it happens, right? So I want to see how people in such situations would react, and how an author will take that and take care of that situation so that a reader can appreciate it. And I love that I've been reading such stories, but honestly, what I would like to see more of in that trope is someone like an author who takes that marriage in trouble situation and explores it in a different way, where we don't have specifically people who are struggling with fertility, but maybe people who have kids already and have gotten into a rut within their relationship, or people who maybe don't have kids, don't want kids, but have been together for like 10 years and are like, okay, so maybe we've changed as people within our relationship and we don't know if we're compatible, and how do we proceed with our relationship? Do we go to therapy? Do we break up? Do we take a break and then come back together? How do people react in such situations? So really go into a direction that is not focusing on fertility, because obviously, like I mentioned, well, I do love this kind of story where we're focusing on fertility because it's an important topic, but I would also like to see other types of situations represented within that trope, because I think ultimately what I would like to see is feeling myself represented in a story as well. Because while I'm not having any struggle with my relationship, I'm not having any marriage in trouble crisis or whatever, I've been in a committed relationship for 15 years and we've gone through our ups and downs, and I'm just fascinated by how do people motivate each other, or how do you motivate yourself to work on your relationship to make it to the forever part, like to really to the death do us part situation. Because I am an honest believer of, I found my partner, I love my partner, and I really want to spend my life with my partner, and I'm willing to do the work, and I hope that he is too. But like, I want to see other people in the situation of, okay, we're in a committed relationship for many years now, and how do we continue that? How do we get to the point of motivating each other to not fall into that rut and not getting into fights about stupid things, and not like disregarding each other's needs or whatever. So I really want to see more of that in marriage in trouble tropes. So yeah, I forgot one thing. Marriage in trouble often involves also cheating, which I understand, but I would love to see a situation where it doesn't involve that as well. So yeah, that's one of the things that I definitely would like to see more of in the future. If any author is watching this and is inspired by what I'm saying, I would love to pick up your book. Or maybe if you have any recommendations for me with this trope where we don't have those things that I just mentioned, but we have the really the struggle of trying to be with each other after a long period of time, I would love to hear those so I can pick them up. So the next thing I want to talk about is something that I think I've heard some people mention as well. If I'm not mistaken, in some video, Bree from In Love and Words mentioned this, where I would love to see a couple have a happily ever after where there is no marriage or children involved in like the end part of the story or the epilogue. Because obviously nowadays I don't think that it's such a high percentage, the percentage of people who actually get married. There's a lot of people who nowadays just choose to be partners for life without having the actual marriage going on. They just live as partners. And then also a lot of people choose not to have kids. So I think that it's a fair assessment to say that those types of situations are not very much represented within romance books. And I would like to see more of those, because I have a kid, and I am not opposed to kids in books. Actually, like a single dad, single mom tropes are really favorites of mine, so I really don't mind that. But I have plenty of friends and people that I absolutely love who have decided not to have kids, and I completely understand their decision. Everyone has a different reason as to why not to have kids, but I think that it's important to really realize that those people don't feel represented in romance books, so maybe many people will not pick them up. And if we have more of those, then we'll have more people who will join our community, and more people who will appreciate books that have representation where people see themselves in those books. And also, not only to see those situations in the epilogue, but really to see how the desires of these people, like what they want in life, is represented when they start the relationship and continue it. What I mean to say here is, for example, I just read a book. Honestly, I don't remember the name of it. I'm just going to pull it up off of Goodreads. It's called Space Junk. It's a book by Sarah L. Hudson. And had the book gone in a different direction, I would have given it less stars, but I gave it 4 stars because what we have here is a situation where the main character, the heroine, she works for NASA. She's an engineer and she is a genius, and she very much wants to become an astronaut. And this is something that she has mentioned a couple of times over in the book, how she has had this journey of going through college early and really working towards this goal of hers and really focusing on her future. And when she meets the hero, he's like, yeah, astronaut. You know, he doesn't really believe that it's gonna happen. And when she really goes for it, we really see how she is going through interviews and how she wants to make these dreams of hers come true. And then I'm going to spoil it here. If you're going to pick this book up, don't watch the next part. But basically what happens is, in the end, when the couple gets together, we've got an epilogue where we see that she actually has become an astronaut and that she is making her dream come true of going into space and doing this mission, and her husband who is supporting her. And this is the happily ever after that we get. And I really love that. I mean, the focus wasn't on the fact that they got married or that they you know, are thinking about having kids or have kids or she is pregnant or whatever. It's really on, this has been my dream and I've been working towards this my whole adult life and I finally made it. This is what I really appreciated about this book, and that's why I gave it 4 stars, because had this not been present in the book, it would have been less. But really the fact that the author managed to notice that this was important for the heroine, this was her priority in life, and this is what she wanted to achieve. So this is how the story should end. This is what I want to see more of in romance, where if, for example, we see that there is some kind of a priority for the hero or heroine, doesn't matter if it's regarding a career, regarding a specific thing that they love to do, whether it be sports or some kind of art or some kind of craft that they have, really to explore that. How do these people live? How do they continue their life without focusing on the marriage and kids part? Because there's plenty of those. So this is one of the things that I definitely want to see more of in romance. Please tell me if you agree, and if you need in your stories to see the HEA include marriage and kids. For me, it doesn't have to end in that way. I obviously do love it if I'm really connected to the characters and I see that they have gorgeous babies in the end. Obviously, like I'm exploding with joy as well, but I would just like to see other situations represented as well. So the next topic I've mentioned before when I've discussed specific books that include this trope, I'm not sure whether it's a trope, but I'm just calling it a trope for the sake of easy use. I've mentioned that I want to see more of it in the past, and that is having stories where the main characters are in their mid-30s or older, and even like characters who are maybe in their 50s and maybe have already had marriages behind them, or maybe have already grown kids and now are on their own and they're exploring like what am I going to do now that my kids are not at home anymore, and just situations that we see in real life, you know, and opportunities of having again other types of readers discovering themselves through these stories. I have not read very many of those. Like lately I've read a couple of stories where we've got hero heroine who are in their 30s or 40s, which I've absolutely loved. And please, if you have any recommendations again with this trope, please let me know so that I can pick up more books that involve people who are not in the new adult era, because there's plenty of young adult books, there's plenty of new adult books. Obviously I get the hype, right? I get the fact that when you're young and kind of invincible and you're just exploring your first relationships, this is something that is very fascinating for everyone to read about. I'm one of the readers who loves that as well, so I will pick up new adult books, I will pick up young adult books. That doesn't bother me per se, but I just want to have more representation for other demographic groups, because I myself am over 35 years of age as well. So I would again recognize myself more if I read a book with a heroine who is not in her early 20s. So yeah, that is what I want to see more of in romance as well. So stepping away from the tropes here, I want to talk about what I would like to see more of in romance as well. I'm going to preface everything by saying I completely understand that authors need to jump on the hype so that they can make a good living, right? So every author is dependent on how many books they're going to sell to get a good earning out of the, or good profit out of the whole situation. So I understand that if there is a specific hype that is going on, they will want to produce a book that is going to fit within that hype so that they can get more profit off of it. I completely understand that. I respect that, and I completely support that as well. However, what I kind of miss a lot in a lot of romance books is real romance. Romance where we have pining heroes, where we have longing, where we have gestures, whether it be small gestures, big gestures, grand gestures. Situations where we have characters who are described, or not described, but where their feelings are portrayed more than their desires, like physical desires. So where I'm heading with this is that there's been a lot of focus on steamy books lately, a lot of smut, as people want to call it. And I have nothing against smutty books. I have nothing against steamy books. I am known to read a lot of steamy books. I even read a lot of steamy books that have absolutely no plot, and I still enjoy them because I'm probably in the mood for that specific type of book. So I have nothing against those, but it's been very difficult, at least for me, to find stories that have a substance that includes those elements that make me recognize how romantic a book is. And really, when I come across such a book, I will sing its praises to the moon and back, because it's difficult to find nowadays. So I really want to see more romance within books, and not per se less theme. Like, for me, really, honestly, this is the type of thing where in my channel, I don't even include, like, is this book very steamy? Is it open door, closed door? Because oftentimes I don't even notice. Like, for example, if a book is really well written, if we've got a book that will leave me in a situation where I'm just so involved with the characters, there's so much romance, longing, pining involved, I'm not even going to notice if it's an open or closed door romance. And someone will make a point of it in a video that I'm going to watch of someone else reacting to that book, and I'm like, was it like that? Was it open door? Was it closed door? I don't even know, because I'm just so involved with the story itself, with the feelings of the characters, that it doesn't make a difference to me. I don't care if there is theme in that book or not. And the same is true for stories where there is a lot of steam in the books. Like, if there is a situation where every second chapter we've got a steamy scene, but at the same time we're getting a journey in that situation, in that book, in that plot, and really exploring of specific kinds of feelings and just a real life situation, or whatever you want to call it, I appreciate it just as much. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm tired of the steam. But if the story is only like steam for the sake of steam, no plot at all, and just, you know, then I have to accept that this is the kind of story that it is, and that I shouldn't discredit it because it doesn't have any romance involved. But at the same time, I'm just missing out on something in that story, if you get what I mean. So yeah, for me, that is not important per se, but I would just like to see more romance in books, if you get what I'm saying. Speaking about steam and about preferences, like, do you prefer open door, closed door, more steam, less steam? What I would like to see less of is probably like the shaming part and the not respecting people's preference part within the bookish community. I've been seeing a lot of commentary, let's say, where if someone shares something and people take offense in some way, they kind of discredit this person totally. It kind of makes me uncomfortable that people are attacked on such a level. I mean, I have my opinions on everything like every other person, right? I will agree or disagree with whatever is happening, and I will have an opinion on it when I research what is happening. And I will always, though, try, if I'm going to express my opinion out in the open, try to do it as respectfully as possible and try not to, like, what we call nowadays cancel anyone, because canceling someone means that you're not giving them another chance to correct themselves. You're not giving them enough opportunity to learn from the experience that they have had, because everyone makes mistakes. I've made mistakes. I've probably made comments or expressed opinions that were wrong or that were not sensitive enough to the person that I've made them to. But if they don't give me a chance to understand their position and their way of thinking, and that their preference is probably fair and that it may differ from mine, but that does not mean that the two cannot coexist. Or even if they cannot coexist, we need to be able to have a discussion together, communicate with each other in a way where we can convince one another of what is right and what is wrong in a more kind of a safe space. I feel like with social media, what is happening is that a lot of people are getting very triggered, very sensitive, very outspoken, and really feel comfortable with attacking one another. And that really makes me very, very uncomfortable. I've seen a lot of things going on lately that I don't even want to touch with a 10-foot pole, because it makes me feel uncomfortable expressing any kind of opinion that may trigger a very big discussion into something that obviously everyone has an opinion on. And what I just want to say here is that I feel like we need to kind of take a step back, chill out a little bit, and react in the most respectful possible way towards a situation that may be sensitive for any of the parties involved. And I think that that will create a safer way of going about these situations, because what I've learned in my experience of because my job requires me to involve a lot of social skills, like soft skills, into communicating with people, is that if we get a situation where there is a negative connotation, if there is some kind of a, for example, a frustrated person who starts speaking, who has a rant to say, if we react to it with our base instinct, with our first possible reaction, for example, we don't agree with this person, so we're immediately going to share our opinion and our reaction, what will happen is 99% of the time the situation will escalate. In kind of the laws of communication, the best way to go about such a situation is, if someone is frustrated, is angry, and is ranting about something, is first to try to relate to them and say, I get where you're coming from, however, and then try to express your opinion in the most level possible way. So try to kind of first alleviate the situation, and then maybe present your point and try to be as positive about it as possible. So not attacking the person's opinions, or not trying to kind of make their opinion less valid than yours. And I don't think that anyone does that nowadays, even though we do it in our job because it's required. Like if some client at like the car dealer comes and says, what kind of crappy cars are you selling here? And you're like, yeah, your car is crappy. If you go about it that way, you're never going to sell cars, right? So we need to be very mindful of what do we do in real life? Like, how do we talk also to the people we love? Are we going to talk to people we love in the same way that we talk to strangers on the internet nowadays? I feel like we're not doing that at all. So I'm trying to be as respectful and mindful when I put out my comments into the world. So what I want to see less of, like, to make my point here in a very roundabout way, what I want to see less of is the disregard of the fact that people have different opinions and different preferences. Like, it's not wrong to want to have closed door romances. It's not wrong to have the need for steamy romances. It's not wrong to want to have a more women's fiction type of book instead of a romance with a happily ever after. Everyone has preferences, and everyone should be able to pick up whatever they want to pick up without having to feel shame or pressure from the community that that's not the kind of book that goes nowadays. And we should be able to just express ourselves without having the fear or anxiety that someone is going to attack us over our own opinions. And this is really like a sensitive, vulnerable type of topic, but yeah, I hope that we can just be more sensitive with other people's space and the way that they communicate. And if you don't agree with someone with how they're reacting or the way that they're speaking, there is a good way of giving critique to people. It doesn't have to be in a way that attacks their personality or personal space. It can be done in a respectful way, I think. So that's what I want to see more in the community, of people who communicate in a more healthy way. I think I do need to go back to tropes, because I thought about another thing that I want to see more of in terms of, like, let's say a trope. I've been loving the fact that we get a lot of representation for different kinds of, for example, chronic illnesses, different kinds of disabilities, different kinds of people within specific communities, even it be sexual orientation or religion or whatever. But what I want to see more of in romances is romances with average looking people. What I feel is that oftentimes, obviously, everyone wants to read about the hot guy with the six-pack and the hot blonde with the big boobs and hourglass body, and you imagine beautiful people getting together and you're like, oh yeah, that kind of fits like the perfect picture ideal. But at the same time, I don't feel like I am that person. I'm not that person. So I would love to feel like a heroine is there, and not even like represented in the way of, okay, curvy heroine. I am very average looking. I am not skinny and I'm not curvy either. So I'm kind of really average, and I don't really feel very well represented, if you get what I mean. And especially even not with women. I think with women it's not even that bad, because we do get representation for different, even like hairdos and different appearances and styles. We do get representation in that. But I feel for men, do we get any men with like a bit of a belly, or a man who is kind of growing a bit bold, or a guy who has maybe a bit of a bigger nose, or just who has features that are not conventionally beautiful? I don't think so. I mean, off the top of my head, I'm thinking about Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I found that to be so refreshing, that the hero is not the toned kind of guy. He had a bit of a self-image issue with himself, because he has a bit of a belly, and he was like, when he got with her, when he didn't want to have sex with her with the lights on, because he was self-conscious about it. And yeah, that happens in real life, and those are the kinds of men that we want to see represented as well, because those are the kinds of men that many women will marry and will have relationships with, and will want to see how those situations work themselves out. So those are the kind of people that I also want to see more represented in books, not only like the picture perfect kinds of appearances, you know. The last thing I'm going to mention, because I'm suspecting that this video is going to be really long otherwise, is tropes that are done in the same way over and over again until it gets so unoriginal that it's not pleasurable anymore to read about them. And I would really like to see authors step away from those tropes, or otherwise, if you're going to do a book with that trope, do it in a different way. I'm going to give a very specific example here because this is the trope really that bothers me the most, and this is the brother's best friend trope. So I really have an issue with this trope because I have brothers, and if I found myself in a situation where I'm the heroine and the brothers react in the way that we see in every single brother's best friend romance, I would honestly not have a very good relationship with my brothers. So what happens typically in that trope is we've got a brother and a sister. The brother has a best friend. The best friend is hot, and the sister, she wants to get with the best friend, but she's like, oh, he's my brother's best friend and my brother's not gonna approve. And eventually they do get together, but they do it in secret, so the brother doesn't find out, because if he finds out, he's going to be pissed off for some reason. And there's secret keeping, which is really not logical for me. And at the same time, when the secret does come out, obviously there is a very big betrayal that they've been keeping a secret, and that he is pissed off at his best friend, like, how could you do that to my sister? And that really pisses me off, because in my opinion, if the guy, like the brother, if he has a best friend, obviously you're going to have a best friend because you appreciate the qualities of their character. Otherwise you wouldn't be best friends with that person, right? Why wouldn't you want a good person, the person you've chosen for your best friend, to be the person who loves your sister? I just do not get that. It's not logical for me. I don't believe that if I can imagine my brother and me being in that situation, he would be happy for me. He would not be pissed off. Obviously he's going to do the whole like, please don't hurt my sister thing. Probably not, I'm gonna kill you if you do something to my sister. But he's going to obviously be worried whether it's going to work out, because if it doesn't work out, then he's going to have trouble with his best friend. I understand that, and I would like to see that represented in a book, but not the whole situation where it's just a whole clusterfuck of a miscommunication, secret keeping, and just outrage over nothing. So I would love to see that trope go in a different direction, because it just pisses me off to read over and over again the same situation with different names to the characters. And I would like to see that for more tropes than this one, honestly, but it just serves as the best possible example that I can give, because it just gets corny at some point and it gets kind of tiresome to read these kinds of stories. And honestly, I'm at the point where if I find out that this book has that, I'm not going to pick it up. Or if I start to read and I get to a point where it starts to happen, I will DNF such a book. So, and I really dislike the DNFing of books, so I really try not to do it. So it gets to a point where I struggle with myself because of this trope. So I'm not going to I don't want to feel the anxiety anymore. So I'm not going to pick up such books if I know that this trope is in them. So if we want to have love for the tropes that we love, we need to be able to kind of diversify them somehow. So I would love to see that happen more for many different tropes. This was my very random bookish talk that I wanted to share with you. Please let me know if you agree or disagree with me on any of the topics that I discussed. Please let me know what your hot takes are within the bookish community. What would you like to see more of or less of? And let's just create a safe space where we can talk about these things, because I think it just creates more of a kind of an inclusive community with a push towards a more positive outcome eventually. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you very soon in the next one. Have a wonderful, marvelous day. Happy reading. Take care, and bye-bye.